I call this regular board meeting of the Siloam Springs City Board of Directors for July 21, 2020 to order. Roll call.
Sappington,
Here.
Wiley,
Here.
Burns,
Here.
Hunt,
Here.
Rissler,
Here.
Colton,
Here.
Carroll. Here.
Would you please stand as Director Coleman leads us in our opening prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pray with me, please. Gracious, gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the beauty of this day. We thank you for the wonderful city in which we have good fortune to reside. I pray that our deliberations today would be honorable to you and meaningful to our residents. We pray for those who are in uniform and who serve protect us, both here and abroad. We pray that you keep them safe. All of our men and women in uniform, in Christ's name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Good evening. Before we get into the agenda tonight, let's make sure that if you have an electronic device on you, make sure it's muted or turned off so that it won't interrupt somebody while they're maybe speaking on an important point. Okay, we got a little bit of difference tonight. This is our first attempt, or our first time to go with the consent agenda. So our public input question or statement will have a little bit of different verbiage to it here. So here we go. The public may address, this is our public input period. The public may address the Board of Directors regarding any item on the consent agenda or any city business that is not otherwise listed on the board's regular agenda. So if there's anybody who would like to come up and address the board on city business, it's not on an agenda unless it happens to have a comment they want to make on the consent agenda. If you'd like to come forward, please step forward and state your name and your address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and the clock will be running tonight.
Larry Kennemore, 207 Western Hills Drive. Mayor Turner, City Board. Early warning system. Yes, that's the name of the City of Siloam Springs system. Early warning to warn the taxpayers of weather or other related dangers. Now we find that there is talk of removing this system. We can, however, thank some city board members who take it upon themselves to notify their constituents and letting us know how our taxpayer dollars are spent. Originally purchased in 2007, upgraded in maintenance over the years totaling almost $150,000 of taxpayers' money. And I have to say, after reading all the documents and purchase orders, from the original purchase date, I find that board members, Smiley, approved the original purchase and every upgrade to that system since that time, and Mayor Turner, you voted for the original system. What is the purpose of phasing out this system? Why? Have you asked the taxpayers that paid for this? If not, why not? I know that Mr. Patterson does not like to have the citizens involved or know about city business. However, the citizens paid for this system, and the maintenance totaling almost $150,000, should they not have a say in literally burning $150,000? And to prove that point, who put this item on the consent agenda? That's just an attempt to continue to deceive the citizens of Siloam Springs. All this and other items in the past are adding to a groundswell of citizen pushback to this council, as you'll find shortly when voting begins. You're going to have to answer on how to justify throwing away almost $150,000 of taxpayers' money. Lastly, we pray this will not be one of those agenda items that becomes an emergency, one where the citizens of Siloam Springs become deceived again and have no input about what has happened in the past. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Blake Jones, and I'm 2007 North Carl Street, Siloam Springs. I've come to you today to speak. The man just before me spoke about $150,000 of wasted money. Today I'm going to speak to you about much, much more, both before and after. From the column from the paper, this is in 2008. The citizens may not be aware of this either. In the land of the repressed, nothing really surprises us anymore. Siloam Springs banned vibrator sales and strip clubs, and now they're infested with an American Legion chaplain who loves young boys, and jailers who may have been subjected, who may have subjected more than 4,000 people arrested on minor offenses to illegal strip and body cavity searches without consent, without a warrant, and in violation of the constitutional right against illegal search. This week, the city agreed to settle a federal lawsuit challenging the jailhouse indignities. They admitted no wrongdoing, of course, but readily agreed to pay $1.85 million. That's probably something these citizens don't know. In the class action against Police Chief Joe Garrett and former Chief Jerry Toller, that's about all we know. All questions at the time were referred to City Attorney Tom Keeklick. And today I come before you to tell you again, this city has seemed to learn nothing from the loss of that $1.85 million. The police department has violated my Freedom of Information request. Since 2001, the department was required to purchase software capable of separating exempt and non-exempt information. I was denied based on this failure. FOIA requests are subject to 72 hours. I was given 1 to 2 weeks for my simple request. Without warrant, reasonable suspicion, or probable cause, my vehicle has been seized, my papers searched, my vehicle searched, and my person detained countless times. My complaints have been tossed casually aside by Scott Miller, who perpetrated these very acts against me in 2015. The city once again admits to no wrongdoing, just as they did in 2008. Finally, board members have been notified, the city administrator, and the mayor. You have all been told what has occurred. You stand idly by and allow this department to perpetrate atrocities against these citizens. Today that ends. I will not stand for it any longer. If it is your desire to be complicit and once again ignore the outcry of myself and others like me, then I will once again bring a federal lawsuit against this city. And each time going forward I am offered no redress, another will follow. I will FOIA request information for other victims like myself and either show them how to do the same, or I will hand this information over to an attorney to file another class action against this city. I suggest you move with haste before it has to come to action. Or once again, you may tell the citizens of this city how you are paying for your ineptitude.
Anyone else? All right. If not, then we will move on to our regularly scheduled items. First item on the agenda this evening is, of course, the consent agenda, and I'm going to ask Administrator Patterson to give us a refresher on how the consent agenda is designed to work. Philip?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. So as previously discussed, as it relates to the consent agenda, one motion could or will approve all the items on consent. Every board member has the right to pull any item on consent. So the process would be that the mayor would read all the consent items as far as the titles so that everybody understands what is on consent. The mayor will ask the board what's the board's pleasure, and if any member of the board wishes to pull an item such as item C, all you have to say is I would like to pull item C, the mutual aid agreement, and then that item is pulled off consent. If there's no other items, the mayor would ask for a motion, and the motion would be to approve the remaining items on consent. All those items, assuming that motion is passed, all those items would be approved, and then the next order of business would be to take up the item that was removed from the consent agenda. And typically the mayor would look to whichever board member pulled that item to speak to that issue or that item that was pulled.
Thank you, Philip. It sounds really simple. Let's see how we can, if we can get through this without any hiccups on the very first run. All right. As I stated, and as Philip has said, we have a consent agenda as item number 2, A through F. The consent agenda consists of the following. A, workshop minutes for the July 7, 2020 workshop for the city board. B, regular meeting minutes for the July 7, 2020 board meeting. C, mutual aid agreement with the electric department for Grand River Dam Authority, GRDA. D, administration Chamber of Commerce makerspace agreement. E, resolutions 37-20, setting hearing date for annexation of city enclaves, August 18th, 2020. And F, resolution 38-20, final plat development permit for Ashley Park Addition, 2200 block of North Hyco Street. Board, is there any item on this consent agenda that anyone would like to have removed for discussion down as we move into our regular agenda? Being none, do I have a motion to approve on the consent agenda as presented?
Mr. Mayor,
Bob?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed.
We've got a motion and a second. Carol? Don't guess there's even any discussion on the motion, is there? We just move right on through. Okay, that's what I thought. Otherwise, you'd be discussing what's on the agenda, which is nobody asked to take that, have that removed. Oh, okay. All those. This is a roll call vote, and we'll do roll call on the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Renee?
Wiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Agenda is approved. Thank you. Now we move into our regularly scheduled items. First is ordinances. We have ordinance 20-18, second reading, amending section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from R2 to PD, the 700 to 1000 block of Highway 16 South. Ben Rhodes?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Ben Rhodes, the senior planner. Before you is the second reading for the rezoning ordinance occurring at the 700 to 1000 block of Highway 16 South. This is going from the R2 district to PD plan development. Staff has not received any additional comments since the first reading, and we continue to recommend approval, and we stand by for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments from the audience? All right, if there are no comments, from the audience, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and questions from staff. Being done, I'll entertain a motion to suspend on ordinance 20-18.
Mayor,
Yes, Reed.
ask that we place ordinance number 20-18 on its second reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to suspend? Being none, we will vote. Roll call?
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Wiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 20-18, an ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, City Zoning Map, rezoning from R2 to PD, the property located in the 700 to 1000 block of Highway 16 South.
Thank you, Philip. Next is ordinance number 20-19, second reading, annexation of 53.63 acres at the 23,000 block of Lawless Road, and it has been requested that this not go to third reading, but we take this to full three readings by staff. Ben Rhodes.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Mayor and Board. Before you is the second reading for the group petition annexation request to take in 53.63 acres of territory located north of Lawless Road. The applicant is proposing the R1, R2, and R3 zones as specified in the zoning plan attached to the memo. Since the first reading, staff is not aware of any additional comments on this, and we continue to recommend approval and stand by for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comment from the audience? State's name and address and have at it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Larry McCready. I live in Fayetteville. I'm a representative of the petitioners, and I just wanted to introduce myself. I don't really have any comments to add, but I just wanted to let you know that a representative of the petitioners was here and is available to answer any questions that staff may not be able to, if anyone has any for me. So, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone have any questions? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion. Yes.
Did you say you wanted it to go 3 readings?
No, do not. They do not. They've requested we not
I
do
move
3
that we
readings.
place ordinance 2019 on its second and third reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Second.
Yes, Philip?
Director Carroll, did you say second and third?
No. She asked, did we want third? And I said, no, we did not want third.
Oh, I understood that you
Did say
wanted
that
third.
Did say
I
second
did say
and third.
second and third.
Did I say second and third? Or did you say second and
I
third?
said
Oh,
second
I
and
thought
third.
you asked
Go
if I
through all
wanted.
3.
Okay.
So I
staff-
need to repeat my motion.
Without third, without the third. I'm sorry, I
move
misread
we
that. I
place
misheard
ordinance
it.
2019 on its second reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Okay, I apologize.
I will second that again.
Okay. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion on the motion on the motion? Being none. Let's see. Hang on a second here. Being none, I'll turn it over to Renee for a roll call. How's that sound?
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Tappington,
Yes.
Smiley, Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 20-19, an ordinance accepting the annexation of certain territory to the city of Siloam Springs, Arkansas, and assigning same to a ward.
All right. Staff reports. Philip? Or are you going to do these, Ben? That's right. Okay. We're
Ben's
gonna tag team it?
introduce this enclave annexation, and I want to give a little bit of background for the board's purpose and for the public. So enclaves are county properties that are surrounded by the city limits, surrounded on 100% all the way around. So they're a county parcel inside the city limits. The state statutes has a specific process that cities can go through to annex those enclaves. One of the things we have to do is we have to set a public hearing for a future date. That was Resolution 3720, August, whatever that date was. And then the other thing, which is somewhat interesting, is before the ordinance can be read for its first time, the ordinances annexing those enclaves have to be introduced to the board before the public hearing. So Ben's going to introduce the ordinances annexing individual enclaves. We can't do one ordinance. We have to do an ordinance for each individual enclave. Some of these enclaves have multiple parcels in them. But the introduction is just sort of an overview, and then Ben will go into more detail in August when we have the actual first reading, and we'll have public hearing at that time and public comments. Being that these are introductions, typically there won't be any public comment because you need that to occur at the public hearings.
And Philip, if I'm not mistaken, I think the state really wants cities to do this. In other words, they want us to clean up our city limit lines and eliminate islands and these enclaves. Is that, I mean,
That's the purpose.
That's the purpose of
the
their-
city being able to do an annexation without going through a vote. Usually, if the city proposes an annexation, you have to go through a vote. the county wants this too, because, you know, if you're a county parcel surrounded by the city and you need emergency services, really and truly, the county is the one responsible.
Right.
So then we'll walk you through it, and then we'll be happy to try to answer any questions the board may have.
All right, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board, and Philip for the introduction there. Yes, so just to follow up with the administrator said, this is the outcome of the resolution that's passed setting the hearing date for the enclave annexation. So we are required to introduce the ordinances for each area, following the procedures set in the state statutes, which this administrator stated that we have to introduce those first. Then you get the vote on first reading at the hearing, which will be set as August the 18th. So we did reach out to the property owners in each one of these islands back in January. We sent out letters to all the registered landowners that would be impacted by this, and we invited them to 2 different open house meetings here at City Hall. They were attended by 2 neighbors, and then we were able to meet with a 3rd property owner later on. In addition, several people were not able to make those particular open houses. We did make contact with them through telephone calls, and to date, no one has raised any objections to the annexations. So I did also want to point out that there was a typographical error in the memo for Enclave C through E. Those are in Ward 3, not Ward 2. Staff, because these are introduced, staff will not be making any recommendations at this time until the ordinance are ready for their first readings. And with that, we are available for any questions. Thank you.
Ben, staff, and you have any questions, Ben, regarding this? All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
I've got one. So, you know, I'm for this, but let's say somebody owns property surrounded by the city, is running cattle on it. It's got a house, couple of large shops, and has no desire to annex into the city, but is surrounded by the city. This is not going to force their hand, is it?
Well, I mean, we would take that under consideration if they raise objections. There is one property that is, as you described, more of a rural property. But when I
described it.
Yeah.
That's right. Good.
Which I believe is the Enclave C, as in Charlie. That, you know, we have the A1 zone, which is the agricultural zone that would permit any level of agricultural use. So, you know, it would be able to continue to be used as it is today once it's inside the city limits under that A1 zone regulation.
But does this is kind of like a mask. We strongly encourage, but it's not a force. Because I have a different property I'm thinking of, and I know they don't want to be in the city, and they're surrounded by us right now.
Again, if they raised objections, I think we would take that into consideration. Yeah.
I'm for it because I'm pro-annexation, but I know there's a couple of folks out there that are holding out for whatever reason. I don't have a clue. But I just don't want them to get the impression that this is a force, that we're forcing them into the city.
If I may, the state statutes allow the city to force them in if they're completely surrounded. You don't have to do it, but if the city were to choose to annex an enclave, even at the objection of the owner of that property, the city could, because it's an enclave. That's what the state statutes allow for. We did not hear any objections. We tried to make contact with every one of these property owners. We have not heard any objections from them. If we get to the public hearings and there are objections, then it's your decision to not pass that particular ordinance. But it is, at least in staff's opinion, and as the mayor said, you try to clean up these pockets of county properties within the city limits. I'm assuming the property that you're referring to is in one of these enclaves, because we're not aware of any other property that is
Off
surrounded.
Lincoln Street.
Can talk offline, because if there's another piece of property we're not aware of, we think we have identified every enclave that we're aware of.
I'll give you the information tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Ben. We'll see you in August. Oh, we'll see you in August anyway, won't we? All right. Philip, Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board. You have before you the Administrator's report. We have one purchase that we need to report on. 40 30-foot tall light poles with the 6-foot arms were purchased by the Electric Department for inventory at a cost of $32,360. Before I get into the rest of it, I want to speak for just a minute about the primary election that is coming up on August the 11th. Early voting starts August 4th through the 10th. So I want to make sure there seems to be maybe some misunderstanding by members of the public based on some comments that I've heard about the ability for a member of the public to vote on the the 3 positions at the board. Those 3 positions are at-large positions. That means that they represent all of the city residents, not just residents in a particular ward. So every resident who is registered to vote can vote for any individual running for position 5, 6, or 7, as well as the position of mayor in the primary election. So I just want to be clear on that those are at-large positions. Everyone is aware that yesterday the governor's executive order 20-43 mandated the wearing of masks in public places where you are exposed to non-household members and you cannot provide the social distancing. That worked for everybody, cities and counties and everybody in between. We suspended the Siloam Cares program because of that. Are trying to encourage businesses to do that. The governor's mandated wearing of face masks sort of supersedes that. Also this week, the actual case numbers per cities were finally released on the internet. The Arkansas Center for Health Improvement website, www.achi.net, has those numbers. They will be updated supposedly every week. I provided you some numbers a couple of weeks ago or I think 2 weeks ago when that first came out, that we might be able to get those numbers. I want to give you the latest numbers as of the 9th of July. On the 3rd of July, when I previously reported, Siloam had experienced 153 positive cases. As of the 9th of July, we are up to 175 positive cases to date, which in a per 1,000 population puts us right over 10 positive cases per 1,000 population. So the issue again is that from that data, it is clear that there are cases of COVID within the city. If you look at the northwest cities in northwest Arkansas that have more than 10, and you compare them to 1,000 population number of cases per 1,000, Siloam Springs is at 10.23, Decatur's at 19.4, Rogers 25.8, Springdale 44.9. All the other cities are less than that in northwest Arkansas as far as number of cases per 1,000. As part of this process, I told you some time ago, a couple of weeks ago, that we were looking at creating a plan for the Memorial Park and how we were going to try to work any events in there based on everything that we knew on Friday before the governor's made his announcement. We had decided to not have any events at Memorial Park. You're already aware of the fact that the Chamber has canceled the Dogwood Festival due to COVID-19. And also, at that time, we were seeing lots of congregation of people that were not social distancing, not wearing masks at the kayak park, and we debated heavily on what was the best move for the kayak park, whether we would just ignore the fact that large congregations were occurring there, whether we would try to open it up on certain days and not on other days, and the decision was made to close the kayak park until further notice. It's not an issue with kayakers, it's not an issue with floating the river. You can float through the river, but the park is officially closed for the time being. The positive side of this is that our June sales tax receipts are still up, as they have been for the month. We're up 7.6% compared to the same month last year, and year to date we're up almost 12%, 11.9% over the same time period of last year. If you remember though, last year we were down some numbers, some months, and we could never really get information from the state why we were up 4%, down 4%, up 2%, down 7-8%. So it's not like we're gaining greatly over last year, because we were down the first half of last year. For the month in the county was down 11%, but they're still up year to date, 7.7%. We are going to wait one more month for sales tax numbers to come in and see where we are before we really start looking at trying to maybe move things that were cut from the budget before we start moving those back. One of those issues that is not reported in sales tax numbers is electric sales. So year to date, we're down over $450,000 in electric sales. However, we're up in some of the other utilities, so that's another thing that we're watching to try to be aware of before we start moving projects back onto the books that were cut. And I believe, Mayor, that's all I have, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Philip? Anybody have any comments or questions for Philip? All right, we're going to move into director's reports, and hang on here a second here. Mindy, when we get to you have the pleasure of calling for adjournment. I'm going to ask that you hold off your adjournment so that we have agenda item before the actual adjournment. So, but I'm going to let Brad start the comments, just because we want to let the public hear any comments that the directors might have, that if they're watching on TV or they don't want to hang around until after the executive session to hear what you guys might have to say. So you can go ahead and give your comments when we get around to you, Mindy, but just hold off on the motion to adjourn until we come back in from executive session, should this board decide to vote to go into executive session. Brad. Excuse me, Brad. I did have one thing I forgot to tell, and you may have picked up on this already, but when we passed the minutes for the resolution, when we passed the minutes, there was a scrivener's error on resolution 36-20 that stated, that Ben Rhodes briefed the board on that. In reality, it was Philip who did that, and it has been changed on the minutes as they will be given to me to sign tonight. So I was supposed to say that before, but it doesn't affect the outcome on it. But just to make sure I took care of my note as I was told to do. So, okay, Brad.
Yes, I just want to remind everybody, Main Street event is virtual this year, and it's this Friday. So if you'll hop on their website and you want to get those tickets, they've all got all sorts of goodies going on. So Main Street does a good job for the core development of our city, and we know that's the lifeblood that helps us all prosper. It's our heritage. It's our history. So please remember that. And I'm going to burn a little oxygen tonight, wasting my, it's not wasting time, but it's interesting. I've never seen this before in the city of Siloam. So we're coming up to election time, and we've got a few citizens that keep showing up at board meetings that want to bring back the past. So I was a city employee, and in 2007 in the early warning system. I can give you a long history about the old ones we took down and wanted to sandblast and put them in the museum. I watched members, a couple that are here right now, that voted on to upgrade the system. And as a fireman at that time, we thought that was fantastic. It was the best we could have at the time. We spent money. Cities spend money. The gentleman that got up here spoke tonight, asked him where he retired from and how much money their city spent on warning systems, on communication systems for fire and police. Cities spend money. But this board has been on budget. We have a very large reserve. So fiscally, we've been very responsible with the money. We're having a very interesting time nitpicking and telling non-truths. The truth is, at the last board meeting, we had a workshop. We discussed upgrading the system, revamping the system, or bringing it into the modern era. So that's what we're going to do, and that's what we looked at. We looked at iPaws. We had a great conversation. And to sit here and twist that around, please, citizens, don't give in to the fear of twisting it around. Your board is not wasting your money. We're fiscally responsible. We balance the budget. These are all the true facts. I apologize for the few citizens that apparently have retired in this town and have taken a new hobby on misinformation. But your city spends money. In 2007, did we spend money? Yes, we did. Go dig up the budget. Go look at that. If you want to live in the past, tear it up. Tear it up. What did we learn from that? What we recently learned is that these systems are not completely effective. And so if you cannot find the PowerPoint, if you cannot do your own research to see what Benton County is doing and Washington County is doing and what the city is looking to go towards, and then you decide to get up and provide misinformation to the citizens, that is not a healthy way to provide security for this community. And I'm sorry you had to hear that tonight. That is not true. We are responsible. We are not squandering your money. We don't burn it. Second of all, to the gentleman that's here right now, you're 1,000% correct. Bad things happened in 2008. I know because I worked the old jail. Used to do medical calls up there. These things all occurred. Many lessons were learned. I was a fireman. This city administration that you see today did not exist. That was an old era. That was an old time. That time is gone. In fact, we've gone through multiple police chiefs because that job is a stressful, short-term job trying to meet the public's needs. We are going to address the sound ordinance. That's all I could do at my level. We will readdress that ordinance. Staff is working on that, and we will make sure that we get it up to modern age. Your other concerns, I have no doubt, I have to put complete faith in the new police chief. Just like I did at the last board meeting, I asked to talk with that person, and that person met with the police chief. I don't know what the outcome of that was. All we can do is facilitate that. I hope within reviewing that ordinance, it helps you on that side, just on the ordinance side. I don't know about the others, but we'll see what we can do for you. Having said that, this system is not perfect, but this is our system. And people that are running for office that are gonna, if you get on this board, we are governed by a set of rules and regulations. And this is where we say our piece. I don't say it on social media. I don't get into the fear mongering. This is where we say it. This is where we vote it up. This is where we vote it down. And then we go back about our way. And then we take our citizens as they bring us comments and we process it and we try to represent you to the best of our ability. If you look at the board goals and you don't like them, then I strongly encourage you to start getting more active. Some of the people that are running for the at-large positions right now were never aware. You know why you weren't aware? Because you weren't interested. You're only interested when you start getting involved. And we are your representative. I'm Ward 2 representative. If you do not inform me, then there's nothing we can do. We've said this over and over again. But 3 minutes up there to try to bring stuff back from 2007 on $150,000 that was spent, I could give you examples and examples of money that was spent, systems that were used, equipment that was purchased that didn't work out. Some of it worked out. Money spent. It's a very large budget. Please do your research, be educated, and do not succumb to these fear tactics that this board is misleading you in any way. The transparency of this city hall, since I have worked with the city and I retired out of the fire department, is as clear as it's ever been. The city administrator is available. When I send him concerns or complaints, they're addressed. Some projects take time. Some get addressed within that week. This whole concept that we're not doing that is incorrect. And I apologize that you have to deal with that kind of misinformation out there right now by individuals that I'm just going to assume are extremely bored and need new hobbies. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Marla?
Brad, thanks. I agree with a lot of that. And I just want to say tonight that I have learned a lot since being on the board. We do have restraints that we have to stay within and limitations that go with passing ordinances, resolutions, everything. We are trained on that, and we continue to learn. And I feel like that the people that I sit up here with are doing justly for the city. They all love Siloam. And I'll leave that with that. I want to address an email I got because of a comment in the newspaper, and I stand behind it. I don't live in the past. I learn from my mistakes, and I go on. And I would say exactly what I said again, because it's important for us to improve and go on. And next, I need to talk about the Manna Center. We are in need of volunteers. We also need donation of canned goods. We are going through, I don't know, probably 10 to 12,000 pounds of food a week. And it's a time of need for our community. And with that, I just say I'm very blessed to be living in Siloam.
Marla, to make a donation specifically toward the canned good, would it be best to bring canned goods or bring money so that you can buy the types of canned goods that you need?
Either way, and the shopping in town is somewhat restricted. And it's like, if you can find it and it's there, go ahead and buy it for us, because sometimes we go in and it's not on the shelf, or they limit us to 12 cans, and that won't last a day.
Lisa? Hit that button.
Mine's short. I just want to thank everybody who's reached out to our family. I'm sorry. My grandfather passed away. Him and my grandmother were married 75 years. And my grandma's still alive. It's because of them I live in Siloam, and I love Siloam. They've been here many years. I was born and raised here, and I really appreciate the people that have reached out to me and my family. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. I'm sorry for your loss. Reed?
I'd like to say I'm very proud of our city. I thank you for what we're doing to get through not only a pandemic, but to look forward to where we're going. And I look at our city and I see good things. We do have an election coming up, and August the 11th, you have an opportunity to exercise your right to a vote. Please do. Thank you.
Reed, Carol?
First of all, sympathies to you. I'm so sorry for your loss. I also want to give sympathies to the Dale Willis family. He passed away last night, and he was a supporter of the city government. He was a frequent visitor to our board meetings when he could make it, he and his wife, Wilma. And so he will be sadly missed. Brad, thank you very much. I want to caution people to think about what they see and hear on Facebook. Many things that we are hearing now are half-truths, innuendos, and as Brad said, part of it is scare tactics. And based on comments and questions that I've received, and comments that have apparently been posted on Facebook, there appears to be some misconceptions related to the city's discussion regarding the outdoor warning system. And I had, Administrator Patterson gave me some numbers and facts, and I'm going to read these to you. And this comes from some of our board meeting workshop. There were 8 purchased in 2007 for $78,000. And yes, I voted for that. What was good in 2007 isn't necessarily what's good in 2020. That's 13 years. Things change. Are you driving the same vehicle you had in 2007? You might be, but you might have upgraded. Since that time, the city has spent $84,000 in maintaining and repairing the system. Of that amount, almost $27,000 was spent repairing the damage to the system after the October tornado. The remaining $57,000 has been spent over the past 13 years maintaining the system. The options that we considered at our workshop included maintain the system as it is, update the current system, replace the entire system, and eventually removing the system. Maintaining the existing system costs at least $4,500 to as high as $10,000 a year, plus staff time. Updating the current system with additions was estimated to cost $250,000 to $300,000. Replacing the entire system with additions was estimated to cost $300,000 to $500,000. Based on the information provided during the workshop on July 7th, the board felt that the best possible solution would be to eventually not replace or significantly update the system. Subject to staff developing a plan for a communication, public awareness campaign on the issue, finding ways to get all existing and future residents enrolled in Code Red, researching options for providing or reducing cost of weather radios for residents, and establishing a plan for a date for implementing this plan. No formal decision was made by this board, and such decision won't be made until staff presents a plan, and at that time this board will have to make a difficult decision as to what to do with the outdoor warning siren system. There was no vote. It has not been decided that we're getting rid of it. Please, please, Facebook is not where you need to get your information on that or any other thing. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Carol.
I'm ready.
Bob, you're up. You're up.
Ready.
You just look ready.
I am. I'm very pleased to look at these sales tax numbers. We had made some assumptions based on the best facts we had available that these figures would be a whole lot less than this. And I'd like to give kudos to our city people because it looks to me like maybe they stayed home. And I know for a fact that a bunch of them were ahead of me at Sonic because that place was swamped every time I ever went there. And all of the other drive-ins and area restaurants that were providing takeout and all that, we obviously did a pretty good job keeping up with eating in town and shopping in town because our sales tax have showed that figure, and I hope that continues. Facebook and Director Burns, and I couldn't agree with you any better. Every time I get on Facebook, I get thrashed, and that's why I stay off of it. I read a poem last week, or last board meeting, and I made a statement that I had heard that statement was, we suffer from an overabundance of a lack of encouragement. and I think that has repeated itself again this month. I'm going to send this poem, A Builder or a Wrecker. I'm going to send it to the newspaper, Mark. You can watch out for that coming in. I wish you could publish that somehow. If I have to pay for an ad, I'll pay for it, but I'd like to see that in there and give credit to the board for doing that. But that's, we got a lot of wreckers in town, but I just hope and pray that if we can develop a little more positive attitude over the things that are going on, let's don't necessarily thrash it. Let's see if we can find some way to correct it or improve it. I think we'll do a whole lot better. And that's all I have before I get in trouble.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Mindy?
Director Rissler, I too want to say I'm sorry for your loss. I know that's a difficult time. I've talked a lot about the need for grace during this time. Grace for our fellow citizens, grace for our leaders who are making tough decisions. Tonight I'm going to add patience to that. Patience, again, for our fellow citizens, patience for our leaders, patience for policies that are temporary in many cases, that are getting us through something that we've never had to deal with before. So grace, patience. Siloam's always sort of prided itself in being a small, friendly community. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget who we are.
Yeah.
And do I make the
No,
motion?
I'm going to ask, since Bob brought it up at last board meeting and asked for this, I'm going to ask you, Bob, if you
Thank you,
will.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'll make one jovial comment before I make the motion. When I mentioned the fact I'd like to have this put on the agenda, our sweet recording person over here just about fell out of her chair because we'd already gone late and she thought I was going to have it last board meeting.
She wasn't alone.
And I think she was not very happy with that, but when she heard next board meeting, it was fine. So, Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment of the city administrator.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Okay, four votes are needed for this to pass. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Excuse me, Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley. Yes. Burns,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Thank you. This board of directors has voted to retire into executive session to consider the employment of City Administrator Philip Patterson. We will reconvene in public session to present and vote at that time on any action arrived at in the executive session. So we are now adjourned to executive session. Call this the City Board of Directors meeting for July what is today, the 21st of 2020, back to order. We have just returned from an executive session that was passed by this board for the purpose of discussing employment of our city administrator. Discussion was there, no decisions or votes were made.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Bob.
I would like to make a motion, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion that we amend the city administrator's employment agreement with regard to severance pay and termination. I would like to amend that agreement by adding that an additional 6 months of pay for the city administrator if he's terminated without cause. I'd like to add a paragraph that determines what cause is on that same contract. If he's terminated with cause, I'd like to have that contract amended to include several different paragraphs that enumerate that cause. Most of these are protected by federal mandate anyway, and we're just including them as an amendment to that employment agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Do we need to state what the current contract states since we're adding to it? Do we need to do that?
I will, yes, sir.
Okay.
The current contract, if he is terminated without cause, it provides for 6 months. And this contract will now read it for an additional 6 months for 12 months. If he's terminated for cause, then that provision does not prevail.
Either condition.
There's nothing in this new amendment that prevents the board, however, from hiring and firing the city administrator. That's the same as it's always been. And I'll present this outline to the city clerk.
Jay, are we sufficient on the motion, to your knowledge? Okay, thank you. All right, is there discussion on that motion? We have a motion, and did we get a second?
Sure.
Carol, all right. Roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
Appington?
Yes.
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 Motion is approved. Thank you. Mindy, do your thing.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We got out of here a pretty good time, even with an executive session. And I'm going to shut up and say, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Woo pig sooie.